Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Wuthering Heights. Andrea Arnold's adaptation of the classic Emily Bronte novel. It's a different adaptation. I think most adaptations of novels like Wuthering Heights are shot in more of a conventional masterpiece theater kind of manner and are very kind of stagnant. I don't really think of movies like that for great cinematography. You might get an amazing shot of a field, but it's not really that interesting. However, the way Wuthering Heights is shot, and it's shot in 4:3, which I think you can tell is the format I quite like. The camera work is kind of intense and very close and almost voyeuristic, so you really feel like you're in the period. You see the dirt, you get this really good sense of the location, the sound design with the wind and the bugs. You really feel like you're in the moors where the novel takes place. I think in a lot of classic novels, the way they're shot, you're really an outsider, like you're displaced and put in this time. And in this film, I feel like I'm really there, and I'm almost seeing too much when you see these characters break down. Maybe you're seeing something you shouldn't be seeing, and it has a certain intensity to it. The cinematographer, Robbie Ryan, does this thing where most of the frame will be out of focus, but the thing he focuses on is it's very purposeful. I've seen films where they do that, and you're like, why am I focused on a hand? That really has nothing to do with the sequence that's going on. What this film does, and was so purposeful, so distinct and meaningful. Every shot, they were telling a part of the story with this distinct kind of visual style, and it's all handheld. Gives it more of a gritty realism. It does make it a little grittier, makes it a little grimier, makes Wuthering Heights come alive more to me. It felt a lot more like I was really there, and that feeds into the voyeurism, because you almost want to know more about these characters as it's going on, even though sometimes it's so voyeuristic it's almost uncomfortable. The film's really cut into two parts. I mean, this is just the parts with Heathcliff and Catherine's relationship, rather than go into the kids and all the other elements. This is like most of the film adaptations that have been made. The early stuff with younger Heathcliff and younger Catherine are really my favorite parts of the film. Those parts worked a lot better than the later parts, which is when I kind of started to doubt the film. I wasn't as into it. I didn't feel like certain elements of it came across as well. At the beginning of the film, when you have the younger Heathcliff and the younger Catherine, Simon Glave played Heathcliff, and Shannon Beer played Catherine. To start off with their relationship and how they kind of fall in love with each other. In the beginning, I guess I believe more in their relationship. It feels more real that these two really would love each other for their whole lives, that they are very important to each other, that they could end up poisoning each other's lives with their love for each other. Shannon Beer, I really liked her as Catherine. She also felt like a real girl to me. She didn't feel like an actress playing Catherine. Simon Glave is Heathcliff. Andrea Arnold decided to cast him because in the novel, Heathcliff's described as like a dark-skinned, gypsy-looking guy. In the film, she takes liberties with that, making him black, and they do like incorporate things like Catherine's brother says the N-word quite a lot, which apparently is not in the book. This film really focuses on Heathcliff. You really see more into his soul. He's so crushed by everything that's happening to him and Catherine's rejection, how everyone's basically rejecting him, and you really get how important that relationship is to him and why I'd still care about that so many years later. But then when we get to so many years later, I do like James Howson as Heathcliff. It seemed like he brought some similar elements that Simon Glave gave earlier in the film, and they look quite alike. So I think that was an easy transition. However, when you see Catherine again, and she's played by Kaya Scaldalero, she doesn't at all look like Catherine, which is something I could get past. I understand you can't, sometimes it just doesn't work out, but just their body types are so different. It was very jarring, and she honestly really wasn't as good to really get that they're very much poisoning each other. That didn't really come across as well. The themes that you really need to show at that point in the story of Wuthering Heights, that did come across early in the film. I thought everything came across really clear and effectively in the first part with the younger actors, but when you get the older actors, it feels like things are muddled and almost like, well, you've read the book, so you should understand what's going on. And like when Heathcliff marries Isabella, and that's supposed to really be a kind of a jab at Catherine, that didn't really come across as well. They had to be around each other, and that if they weren't around each other, it would torture one another and stuff. That came across a little bit through Catherine, but Kaya Scaldalero, she was really one of the worst things about this movie. She really brought down the character of Catherine. I thought the direction was a lot worse in the second part. It's like the first part is so strong, and if that intensity and the effectiveness and the storytelling had really been brought to the second part, this would be a great film. It's a really well directed film. It's a smart way to adapt a classic novel like this, and I like that this film had a more radical, kind of aggressive adaptation, and I think this film shows a very talented director. All the ideas that came into the first part, when they got into the second part, it just didn't feel like they knew how to adapt the story for these older actors and for these older characters. It was like kind of a clumsy second part. It almost felt like the older actors hadn't watched the younger actors perform. Like even in Face Off, you have Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. It felt like they at least knew the rhythms of each other. And in this film, it looked like Kaya Scaldalero and James Housen just didn't really take the time to do that. Or if they did, it just didn't come through. If you enjoy the novel of Wuthering Heights, this is an interesting enough of an adaptation and is such a creative way to direct a source material like this. I really think Andrea Arnold is a really creative director, a really kind of daring and different kind of film. And also, like, she shot in 4:3, which, you know, in the 70mm master days that we're currently in, is a pretty radical idea. It's a very interesting film, but really it's not that great of a film, which kind of hurts it in the long run as a viewer. So if you have seen Wuthering Heights and would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to.